Welcome to the show. This is Tyhson Banighen, the energy detective, the illuminator, bringing you and humanity into the light. And this is the return show for the esoteric principles of bodybuilding. And this is your host, Batista Gremaud, master body designer. And today's topic is quite exciting, and it is the Tantric breath of life. So welcome back to the show. This will be really an interesting one. So how did you come to this title?
Well, because breathing, there's more to breathing than meet the eye. And it's something that is very, very important, not only for our physical health, but for our emotional health. And spiritually, since this is the esoteric principles of bodybuilding, so I always tie it in with spiritual principles. Spiritually speaking, there's so much information about breathing and what it does and how it can affect your emotional state and your spiritual state, that it's something that I have always been very fascinated with. And when I started this process of bodybuilding, it's something that I've always incorporated, researched, tried, because you can learn and you can read about something until you're blue in the face, but until you actually apply it yourself and test it, then it's just intellectual information. And it's something that I've always played with because, I was always very into meditation, and in meditation and spiritual teaching, there's always breathing involved. So for me, it was just a no-brainer. I had to figure out this thing about breathing, So this is something that that it was a must to put into this series. And I do a lot of research, and through my research, I've even found things that are even not that spiritual, but so like just for health purposes. And I want to share that because, it's all about grounding and about bringing things to the body, and the answers are within. And as above, so below. So, that's why I try to always bring things back to the body and then take it and bring it and connecting the dot to spirituality. So that's how I came in with this title.
Well, I find it really quite confusing, to be honest. I was in the gym, just got out of the gym, and I was thinking, we're going to be talking about the Tantric breath of life today. I don't know what I'm doing in this gym. I'm supposed to be breathing in or breathing out or holding my breath. I thought, you've never really thought about this really clearly. I know in the description of each exercise, it says, breathe this way, on the up, or breathe out on the down. But, it's really it's another level of understanding how to do the exercises properly. And I have to tell you, I haven't got it yet. So this is not a straightforward topic. This is something that when you're exercising, you have to entrain the brain, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. And as we're going to talk about today, there is different ways of breathing, and there is no rules per se. There is some advice that makes sense, but then it's also about finding your own rhythm, okay? Because there's no black and white. And we're going to talk about that. But if you don't mind, I would like to actually, before we jump into the gym and the exercise, I just wanted to talk about a few things that are maybe overlooked, that are more like just breathing in general, what it does to the body. Because again, we know that breathing, we can't live if we don't breathe. I mean, it's one of those things, right? Without air, forget it. But what does it really do for your body? So basically, breathing affects everything. Okay, it affects the nervous system, the digestive system, the lungs, obviously, heart, but it also affects the elimination process. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you knew that, but 70% of the elimination process in the body happens through the breath. Okay, 70%.
That's really mind-boggling. When you look up, well, how do you lose weight, and you discover, well, it has to do with your breath. You want to go, start breathing like crazy in order to be skinnier. But yeah, that is a concept that you think, well, maybe it comes out through the blood, or you're moving toxins, or but to come to the realization or understanding that losing weight is through the breath is really quite
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so 70% of the elimination, actually the research shows that 80% of weight loss happened through breathing, okay? And the way it works is fat cells are composed of triglycemides, and these are the fat cells that are produced with carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. And in order to expel this out of the body, it happens through oxidation. Okay, so that when the breathing comes in, so you breathe in the oxygen, the heart pumps the oxygen through the body, through the cells, and then as you exhale, then the oxidative process have happened, right? Because when you're breathing oxygen, the byproduct of that is carbon dioxide. So that's what happens. The oxidative process in the breathing process, you exhale it, and since it's stored in the fat cells, you expel that, and that's how technically you produce weight loss. I mean, it's mind-boggling. I know it doesn't even like what, but it doesn't. It's not like what you were saying. It's not like you're gonna now start breathing heavy and it's gonna happen. That is not how to do it. You see. Because what happens, and it's funny that you did this, because this is exactly what happens. People think of breathing and they go, okay, but the breathing, this is a common mistake on breathing. We breathe, and because of stress or poor posture or traumas and all these things that we talked about in the past episodes, we actually lost the ability to breathe in a healthy way. So we kind of breathe from the from up here. So you don't actually use the full potential of the breathing, where you can actually store the oxygen and actually use it efficiently through the body. So when you do that, and that happens a lot of the gym, because you are actually making an effort because you're lifting weight. So you're gonna go like this, okay? So what does that do? That places extra tension on the shoulder, and it's going to actually accentuate and bad posture and all those negative things that we talked about in past episodes, about storing the emotions in the neck, about shutting down the connections to the brain, and all these things that we talked about in the other episodes. Okay, so this is why we really actually, and this is something that was very, very difficult for me to not only to do, because of my ballet background. You see, in my ballet background, we're always taught to pull the stomach in. Okay, so we're always conscious of, and there is a fine line between pulling the stomach in and holding the core strong and still being able to breathe, what is called belly abdominal breathing. Okay,
well,
so
wearing your croissant, what do you call it, around your belt around your waist, a croissant, what do you call that, when the women in the used to lace themselves up. I mean, if you're doing ballet, it would really restrict your ability to breathe down there, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. But that is like one of the mistakes of people and ballet. It's so aesthetic. You're always looking at your weight, and you're always wearing those tiny costumes and everything. You definitely don't want your belly to pop out, right? So it's just So it's but there is a fine line between finding that core strength and still allowing the breathing to come from the diaphragm and to bring it up to the body. And what happens is, when you do this, you actually are able to hold more air. So when you teach your body to do that, you actually increase your oxygen, your lung capacity. that when you just take really shallow breath from up here, then your body basically doesn't hold enough oxygen to really work properly. But
Right.
why do we need the oxygen in the body? Like when you exercise, what you need to understand is when you exercise is your muscles need the oxygen to produce the energy necessary so that they can work. That energy that the body use in the cells is called like ATP. It's that energy that allows the body, the muscles to contract, or all the processes of the body. It's like the food of the cells, right? So the oxygen is what actually transforms the glucose into that ATP compound, chemical compound, or however you want to call it, and that allows the muscles to actually work efficiently. When you lack oxygen, then that transmutation of glucose into ATP is not going to happen, and it's going to transform into lactic acid, which is going to deposit in the muscles, and that's what causes muscle fatigue. So in the gym, if you're not breathing, or anywhere, if you're not breathing, but especially in exercise, because when you exercise, you actually have to produce more oxygen for that to work efficiently. Like I think it's about at rest, when you're not doing anything, it's 12 to 15 breaths per minute. I think it's about 12 liters. I read that somewhere, 12 liters of oxygen per minute. But when you exercise, and of course it depends on the intensity of the exercise, it's like 100 liters. So you need to produce a lot of oxygen for that to happen. And this is why it's so important to learn to breathe properly, so that you don't fatigue, so that your body, everything works efficiently, and then you don't get these muscle cramps and all that stuff, you know. So that's on that topic. Does that make sense?
Let me ask this: does it depend? I mean, it really, when you're breathing oxygen, you're creating alchemical fire of transmutation in the body to convert the glucose into the different chemicals, which actually have emotions attached to them as well. But does it matter the type of breath? I mean, like there's pranic breathing, where you're breathing very deep, through the nostrils, and there's breathing from one nostril to the other nostril, which is like really, if you do that, it's almost, you get hyperventilating, and it's just like you're creating a fire within the body, an intense fire. So that's sort of breathing. And then there's that long, deep breath, like you say, that's breathing down deep into the solar plexus, and feeling that part of the body all the way to the top, and then breathing out. And so and then there's aerobic exercise, where you're really almost panting because you're so burning, compared to the slow, steady structural adjustment movements that you're making in a gym. So those are three different types of breathing that I can think of, and I would imagine that they're going to take different types of oxygen and have different results in the body.
Absolutely. So first of all, the first thing to be aware of is that breathing in through the nose is like a total must. Okay, so I know sometimes we're in the gym and we're not that aware of the breath, and so we're maybe exerting ourselves or whatever, so we might breathe through the mouth, and that is not recommended at all, not one bit. When you breathe through the nose is actually, we have the hair in the nose and everything, and that actually is like a filter. Okay, so when you breathe through the nose, it's a filter, and so that the air, when it reaches your lungs, it's actually clean air or cleaner air, right? So breathing through the nose is like number one. Now, breathing out, there's different ways of looking at breathing out. When you breathe out through the nose, also. And this would be for that long breath that you're talking about, and that more relaxing breathing, or it would be more like for your day-to-day breathing. it is also better to breathe through the nose, because it put in the gym, it's a little bit different in some instances. Like, for example, and I researched this because when I, our model for our women online strength training program is a 5th degree martial artist from the Shaolin lineage. Okay, so she's like really, really good and really advanced. But she became our student before she became our model. And I worked with her in the gym, and I was teaching her this breathing technique that I'm going to show you. And she said, "Oh, that's interesting, because this is the same type of breathing that we do in martial art."
Very interesting.
And I got really curious, so I started experimenting, because for me, I just took it for granted. This is the way we do it, right? I never really researched it and say why, how, what. But when she said that, I became very curious. And this is how this title actually for this episode came, the Tantric Life of Breath, because through my research and my practicing, I realized that there is really a correlation between the breath and the life force and the ability to move the Kundalini energy and to open the channels to the brain through the breath, and that if the martial artists do it and the tantric teachings do it, then we probably can do it too with our programs and the bodybuilding if we apply it correctly, and considering that in our program we are using all the components of restructuring the body in a balanced way, then that's a major component of that equation in Tantra, in martial arts, in yoga. That's what they seek to do, right? They seek to make those connections. And so this is why I kind of now understand the concept. And so to answer your question more specifically, in the gym, when you are actually lifting, specifically when you're lifting heavy weight, okay? And I will talk about other opportunities when the weight is lighter or there's more reps or things like this. But specifically in the program, you see that there are places, a lot of times it's at the last sets where we do less reps and heavier weight, right? Yeah. In those instances, then it becomes important to use this breathing technique that I'm going to show you, and this is the one that the lady I talked about was saying that is the same in martial art, is you will breathe in through the nose, and you'll imagine the energies coming, again, with the energies come through the ground up, but in Tantra is through the first chakra, right? What do you call it again? The
sacral chakra.
Yeah, exactly. So you breathe in through the nose and you get the energy to come up. And then and this happens really fast, because you're working with weights. But when at the exertion part of the movement, like if you were doing a leg press, for example, it would be then when you're pressing the leg up, then you're going to release the air and you're going to put your tongue on the roof of your palate like this, and you're going to kind of, like if you're smiling, for example, like this, and you're going to release the air with a sound. So you breathe in, and then you breathe out with a and
so that's when you're pushing. That's when you're pushing.
Exactly. That's when you're pushing. Okay. So
what about when you're lifting? Sorry, I'm probably jumping you around here.
When you're doing what?
When you're lifting a weight.
Oh, same thing. Yeah, it's at the exertion moment. When you okay, so you have the moment where you prepare, like in the curl.
Yeah.
You breathe. Well, actually, for the curl, it would be the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where it gets a bit confusing. Is which one do you use at which which exercise. But okay, so when you're pushing and doing, like a heavy weight with your legs, you are actually expelling with a bit of a hiss with the
Yes,
tongue on the top of your mouth when you're pushing out, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you
So
were describing and then you stopped describing. You were talking about the circulation of the breath, and you were motioning it going over the top of your head. Do you want to explain that a little
yeah,
bit more detail?
Yeah.
because we're
Because
working
we're
with.
working with.
Oh, I have an
I
echo
have an
again.
echo.
Do you hear
All
the
right.
echo?
No, but I'll put in my headphones. Keep
Yeah,
on going.
yeah, there's definitely an echo now. Okay, so yes, so what happens is because we're working with the Kundalini energy, and we're working with, we're working with consciousness, and we want to actually integrate all these principles and these tools. Then what happens is we talked about the energy coming from the ground up. So you're going to take the energy, breathe the breath of life up your spine, which is really up the chakras and the energy centers of the body. And again, we talked about this in another episode, so we don't need to go back to that. But you're going to breathe the energy up through the spine into the chakras. You're going to bring it all the way up in the back of your skull. And so what happened is, what I was explaining, it kind of works in a recycling kind of motion, and so it's actually hard to explain, okay, but I'm going to try my best. So it gets up to the crown chakra, and what it does is it activates the crown chakra. What happens when it does that? We talked about the yin yang and the bridge corpus callosum that is in the middle of the skull. So we have the right and the left brain. We talked about this in another episode with the yin yang. And so what happens is, when you start bringing those energies, it creates new neurons in the brain, and it kind of revitalizes, and it regenerate the corpus callosum, and it unites the male female energy, and that's what causes, it's a simplistic version of explaining, it's what causes the crown chakra to open and awaken. Okay, so this process bring the kundalini up, and then it creates new neuron, it just does all this wonderful stuff in the brain. It connects the yin yang energy, opens the crown chakra, and then it comes back down, and it pushes out. It's kind of like when you exhale like carbon dioxide, you exhale all the waste from the body. Energetically, you exhale negative emotions, stuff stored in anything, just out. Anything you don't want, out. Okay? But then what happens is the energy continues, recycles, go back down, and then it comes back up. And then you continue the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had to learn that the hard way in Vipassana meditation when I didn't graduate, let's put it that way. They didn't like what I was doing, but I was using a different breathing technique because I'd been doing it for years. So, and they wanted me to do another one, and that was hard for me to go from one to another. Anyway, make a long story short, I found myself that if it did like you said, I could bring the breath come up over the back of the skull, come down through the solar plexus, go back the back of the spine, and come up the front in a figure 8. When I was doing that, I was building energy in the body, and I was building a fire. If I did it the other way around, I was cooling the body. So I learned what the Tibetans learn when they're, in the mountains, whether when they put the blankets on their shoulder with freezing water, how they can heat the blankets, is how you're moving the Kundalini through the breathing pattern. One is to heat the body, the other is to cool the body, which is pretty cool. I mean, I was under duress to learn this because my body was on fire, but I did learn it. So I understand the cycle that you're talking about. And it's good to remember that and bring it into the ordinary everyday life. So, I mean, you don't need to do this under duress, but if you can do it in the gym and learn how to do this, then, like you said, you can expel anything and everything that no longer serves in your life, not just your weight, but your emotions, anything that's locked in the fibers of your being in the neuromuscular skeletal framework. You can release it that way. So I think that's really important for people to understand.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to do a disclaimer on this, because obviously there's different rhythms and different exercises that we do in the gym. Like if you were doing, like in the beginning of your workout, and you were doing like lighter weight and more reps, understand that if you were doing this each time, you might just hyperventilate, and because sometimes we go a little faster, right? So that's what I mentioned earlier, that we have to find our own rhythm and really do what works for us. For example, for me, sometimes, and it's not like you said, different breathing techniques have different results, but sometimes what I do is I would take one of those big breaths in the beginning. If it was like a longer, more reps and less weight, I would take that long breath on the way in. But then as I do the rest of the set, I would actually exhale at a slow pace throughout the rest of the exercise. And that has a very calming effect. If you do a slow breath and you really, it's just a different feeling. So that works for that instance. But when you do heavy weight, you can use that breath to actually propel you and help you with that weight. And this is how you actually use gravity to propel yourself upward with the weights.
Yeah, that's just the like you're saying, the qigong, or the technique where you're actually, even in that case, you're using a sound, but that breath really actually helps you levitate the weight. In actual fact, is another way of saying that.
Exactly.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, your breath has that much power that when you breathe in the right way, it assists you with lifting the weight. So we were talking about, when you were doing a curl, that's a whole different way of doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because usually when you do a curl, for example, and it's a totally different feeling, like when you do the leg press, like I explained, it's heavy weighted sometimes, so you really need that push. But the curl is really different. The curl is more of a smoother, lighter movement. It's more intimate. It's not like, we don't go like, like when we're curling. So you can be more gentle with your body, and then again, you can find your own rhythm. I would still exhale on the way up if I was doing it at a pace that wouldn't be too fast.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know what I mean? But you could, you can also do the other technique where you actually take a breath in and then just let it exhale softly as you do the exercise. I want to tell you something though, is that this is very advanced, okay? Because when you first learn to train, especially the way we do, because we do things right and we care about form, technique, that the most important thing that you need to do when you begin is just not hold your breath.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the tendency for most people, certainly for me, is if I'm not consciously thinking about what I'm doing, is to hold your breath. And that's going to give you a headache. It's going to give you pressure in the upper head. Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah.
And there are bodybuilders that use the technique of holding their breath. It is like officially in the book of bodybuilding. It's called the Valsalva maneuver, where they actually hold they as they prepare, they hold their breath. They breathe in, and then as they make the effort, they hold their breath, and then after that they exhale. Yeah. But we don't recommend that, because it can create
if you watch the videos when they do that, some of them just throw up on the and they spew all over the place because all of what's in their stomach comes out. So I mean, that doesn't sound to be too healthy to me.
No, it's not, and it can cause blood vessels. The blood vessels can pop. It can even cause strokes.
Yeah.
So don't do that. So at the beginning, the easiest thing to do when you get started is really to remember to breathe through your mouth, through your nose, excuse me.
Yeah.
Don't want to breathe through your mouth, through your nose. And then the easiest way to remember is that you would breathe in when there's no effort and breathe out when you make the effort. That's the easiest thing to remember. Basically, don't forget to breathe. Once you become very comfortable with the exercise and you don't have to think about the million other things that you need to think about because to do it right, if you're a beginner, then you can start playing with the breath and using some of those techniques that we talked about today,
Yeah, so that advanced technique, I'm going to start using it, which is that hiss on the exhale and putting the tongue on the top of your mouth. I know that's very powerful in other techniques, right?
Yes.
So why wouldn't it be in this too? So, I mean, if you study the Tibetan rites exercises, they're teaching you to do the same thing. They're teaching get that tongue on the top of your palate there, because it creates a circuit that keeps your chi energy flowing inside the body rather than expelling it out through the breath. Wow, really powerful stuff. So we talked about how does breathing affect weight loss, and we talked about how breathing can affect performance and how to be aware to just relax when you're doing your exercise. It will come naturally. You can use the advanced way of bringing the Kundalini up if you can think about that, putting your tongue on the top of the palate here and hissing on the exhale, feeling the energy coming up over the top of your head and filling your crown chakra. Those are some key concepts around performance and weight loss. We talked about different exercises require different breath. And remember that if you are exerting yourself, you should be breathing out, right? And when you're relaxing,
exactly.
You're breathing
in.
Yes. Okay. And is there anything else that we need to cover in this? I mean, that's pretty amazing.
It's a lot, and it's a lot. I would just only maybe recommend that you could start playing with the breath outside the gym too, and start experimenting with it on your own time, or just they teach in other practices where you can actually put your hands on your belly and feel the wind coming in and out, or try some of those ideas of bringing the air in the back. Those methods that we talked about today, that's something that you can play with and practice during the day, or just be conscious of your breathing from day to day, like right now, for example.
Right.
And when you catch yourself going like that, just bring the consciousness back into a more healthier breathing. That would be just a really good way to start. And also, if you need to go back to some of the past episodes where we did talk about the chakras, when we talked about the yin yang, of how that works, because it's all related. The male female, in one of that topic, we talked about how the male and female energy, the different energies relate to in the gym. We're talking about this when we're doing this breathing. We are actually we're reuniting the male and female energies inside the body. So I know that maybe you've already listened to the past episodes, but sometimes it takes many different times to listen to the same thing. And when you have another piece of information added onto it, maybe then you go, oh, I get it now. You understand it a different way. I know for me, it's taking me 8 years of immersing myself in this whole philosophy, teaching, practice, and I'm still learning every day. And sometimes I myself go, oh, I understand this now at a total new level. So There's a lot to learn, and there's still, I'm sure, the more I learn, the more I know how much I don't know. So don't think that I'm thinking that I know everything either.
So
But
can you say something quick about the connection with the yin yang? Can you sort of summarize that? I know people can go back and listen to that, but can you sort of tie it together with what we just learned with the breath and the yin yang?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, right now, the fitness industry is all about male energy, like we talked about. It's about doing more than we can. It's about no pain, no gain. It's about, come on, do more, do more. So when you do this, you are actually all in the male, running that male energy. There's nothing. And probably at that point, you're not breathing that well either. You're probably huffing, puffing, exerting yourself. So there's no consciousness. And you might build a little bit of a muscle or lose a few pounds or whatever, but when it's not what we're talking about here, okay? It's mainly male, male, male. So when we learn to actually embrace ourselves through this process that we teach, and even when we didn't talk about the breathing, we're talking about working from an empowerment place inside of our body where we connect the dots, because you see, it as above so below. So the nervous system connects the dots to create new neurons in the brain. Then we talked about the chakras, which is kind of like the spiritual nervous system of the body that opens those new spiritual neurons in the brain. And now we're talking about adding the breathing to now put everything into perspective, where now we're adding the breathing as an additional tool where we can now again reconnect the male, female, and not only intellectually, but physically, to open the crown chakra and let the Kundalini energy to flow. And that will not only affect your physical health, mental health, spiritual health, but the consciousness starts changing. And that's why when we say through this process you kind of become a different person, you do, because you're still the same person, but everything changes. The awareness, the consciousness, the way you see yourself and the way the world sees you and how you perceive yourself and the universe. And I want to say that, to me, this is a must in the path of global evolution, of a planetary evolution, because if we don't reconnect the dots within ourselves, how is that going to happen? Like who said, be the change you want to see? Is it Gandhi or is it Michael Jackson that said that?
There's probably both of them. He was probably thinking that when he was doing the moonwalk.
Exactly,
Or when he had the one white glove on. I think one of the things, one of my favorite things is, I'm grounded to earth and connected to heaven. And if you can remember that in the gym, especially as you're finishing off and you come out of the gym, that's exactly how you should feel. You should feel totally grounded to Mother Earth and just feel the strength of who you are. But you should feel absolutely open and connected to your guidance, to the divinity of who you are. And if you've done it right, you'll feel that. You'll feel it not in your brain, but you'll feel it in your body and your heart. You'll feel it somatically on every level of your being. And that's where we want you to be. That's what you want. We want you to experience coming out of that gym. And then you'll know that you are on track, so to speak.
You got it.
All right. It was a great show. Thank you very much. I love that topic, the Tantric breath of life. And we'll be back same time, same place next week at Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And do you have an idea what the next one is?
Well, I'm still working on that one. And I think we're going to go into more spiritual, the connections with the flower of life, maybe, or maybe the Vitruvian Man. We're getting to that space, even though I think maybe that one will be the week afterwards. I think I want to complete this, all that we've talked about up to now with meditation versus active meditation. But we might transcend into those other topics that are more,
esoteric. So it sounds like we're going up level next week.
Yes, we're definitely gonna bring it to there. I think we covered a lot of the basic things of the body, and yeah.
Well, for those that are listening to the show, thanks for showing up. And of course, catch us next week, same time, same place. Well, thank you ever so much, Batista, and may you have a great week.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye. See you next week.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
This 13-episode series, The Esoteric Principles of Bodybuilding, The Missing Links to Fitness Consciousness, with your host, Batista Gremaud, master builder, bodybuilder, and designer, is co-hosted and produced by Tyhson Banighen and his guides, www.thewellnessshow.ca. And see, the same time, same place, every Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. See you then. Bye for now.